Hello everyone. So I have a lot that I want to cover today, and I want to do it in a short amount of time. So we'll see how this goes. Um, the thing I want to talk about is something that's been on my mind for a long time, and but last week I will say, like during the week, this was the main theme that actually came up, and so today I want to express it, express how I feel, and then I'm really intending to start a conversation. I'm not trying to give any answers or even uh, kind of have a final say in anything. I just want to start the conversation because I feel like it's something that is ignored or avoided. And so here is how I'll start. I was conversing with a friend who happens to be like psychic or intuitive, however you want to call it, and they made a comment and said that most people who get readings are mentally ill. And something about that, just stood out to me. And this is their experience. So, I mean, they're only going to be speaking from their experience and what they observed. And I understand that in life, what I see and what I experience is going to be a lot different from what the next person sees and what they experience and what's true for them. And that's just something we have to understand. We live in some ways, we live in different worlds. But this is what they said, and it really stood out to me because one thing that I've always understood, or that I've experienced in my life, is because I've been around people who are mentally ill. That is when I have had the most experience with what you would call like psychic phenomena or something where like telepathy. Um, I've experienced telepathy with someone who would be considered mentally ill, meaning we were having conversations without speaking. We both knew what we were talking about, and we were able to then get up, and move according to the conversation that we had, that nonverbal conversation that we actually had. And this was something that would happen without much thought at all. Um, Also, in the presence of someone who would be considered mentally ill, I was able to see different dimensions, different aspects of life, which was something that I hadn't experienced until being in their presence. Also, in the presence of someone mentally ill, it was my first time of understanding energy, watching the way we have energy vortexes all over our body. Some people might call that chakras. I don't know. Yes, maybe. And watching their hand move around my body and watching it tremble in certain areas and not in other areas. Okay? And this is someone who's considered mentally ill, and this has been consistent in my experience. So then I think, okay, well, this is so-called psychic phenomena. This is what a lot of people don't believe is real or what happens, and yet these are the same people who are often casted aside in society. And now you have psychics. So then psychics are often, treated the same way, and then there's this weird way that they begin to function in the world. They function in a hidden way. They function in a way that either they try to project themselves as being all full of light and love, so they're not shunned by the public. They function in a safe way. And then some will take the name of psychic, and even though they might have a few gifts, they will use it to hurt people. Because the reality is that psychics aren't that special. All they are is people. And depending on where they are at in their life, they're going to function as that kind of person. So if they're a grimy person with psychic gifts, they're going to be a grimy psychic. That's just the way it is. But what I want to start the conversation about, and I would love more interaction with this, is like, what do people think? Mental illness and psychic phenomena, how does that really link up in the way that you think or in the way that you see the world? I feel like that's one thing that's really avoided. Even in churches, when people they start to act different or have what would be called maybe a psychotic episode, the first thing people think is that they have to, strike a demon out or something like that. And I've even seen people who are psychic who still have maybe a bit of a church mentality or religious mentality thinking the same thing. And I just think it's interesting because because I see it from a different perspective. I'm like, okay, well, I've been on the other side of being around people not really, and this is before I even understood what mental illness was, meaning I experienced mental illness before I had the diagnosis. I experienced energy before I knew what energy was. I experienced, this whole, like, all these different phenomena before I even knew what they were. It wasn't until years later I was like, oh my gosh, that's what this is. I had a term for it because people write all kinds of books and come up with all kinds of terminology for everything, especially when it comes to metaphysics and things like that. But I was experiencing these things before there was a name. I mean, I do a trick that I think a lot of people should do is if I have an illness, it doesn't matter what it is, I always Google it, and then first I see all the WebMD kind of things, and then I'll do spiritual. I'll just add spiritual to anything. And then there's a whole other world that opens up. And what I've found is that when I've addressed it from a spiritual sense, I've had a greater sense of power over the situation. Meaning, once I had throat issues for a long time, and what I learned was the moment I spoke my truth, the throat issues went away. Prior to that, I was going through modern medicine, and I was on allergy medication, I was on antibiotics, I was on all these different things, but I was able to actually rid myself of the whole situation by honestly speaking my truth, telling someone how I felt about something, and it went away like that. And it was the same situation that I had been experiencing over years, and I never understood how to get rid of it until I did that. And that was because I addressed it from a spiritual sense. And I was like, okay, well, I'm supposed to speak my truth. And I knew there was something I needed to say, and that's how I dealt with it. But if I had gone to a doctor's office, that would have seemed insane. I would have been in some kind of cuckoo world. That's not a way to handle things, depending on how open-minded the doctor is. Or if I told to anyone else who's kind of into mainstream society and how people function. So I guess what I'm saying is that oftentimes, yes, I've seen extreme mental illness and I've seen things that are minor. Most psychics would be considered mentally ill. If they actually went in and said, I hear voices, I see things, they would be considered mentally ill. Most people in this world, based off of small moments in their life, would be considered mentally ill. And what I'm trying to say is, where's the link? Where's the link between psychic phenomena, psychics, this kind of, these kinds of things, and mental illness? You see, because I feel like there is a strong connection. I've always felt that way. And of course I could go a lot deeper with it, but I don't want to because I'm wondering what other people are thinking. If other people see it too, is it just as obvious? Or do you think I'm just like totally, I really don't care if you think I'm totally out because I know I'm right. But I still want to know what other people think. I'm right, meaning from my experience, I know what I saw. I know what I've experienced. You can't take that away from me. But I'm wondering other people's take on it. So, yeah. So I really want to just start the conversation. All right. Bye.